This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Hey, welcome to today's War Room Moment. I'm your podcast host, Jason Miller, and today we have Glennette with us today. And Glennette's going to share some superpowers on SEO and what she does with that. Glennette, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, hey, take a little bit of time and tell the audience what you do and what your superpower is.
Okay. My name is Glennette Goodbread, and since 1999, I have been a web designer and SEO specialist. Started out just doing web design, but pretty quickly realized that clients would need SEO because that whole, if you build it, they will come, is not accurate when it comes to websites. So I learned pretty quickly how to do SEO. But then over the years, I've done so much of it that I've just kind of fine-tuned it and tweaked it to a process. So it's not that I just do a little bit here and there. It's like I have an actual template of a process that I use that I go from start to finish. So it takes 6 to 9 months, but within a few months, people see results.
Wow, that's really cool. SEO has always been something to me that I never really understood it until like the last 8 or 9 months,
Right.
when we really ramped up SEO stuff and started really paying attention to that. It's amazing if you do it right, the results you can get organically from it. That's for sure. So,
Absolutely.
well, that kind of segues into the whole SEO conversation. What are the trends you're seeing today when it comes to, use of SEO versus paid advertising versus all these other things, right? Kind of coupling all that together. What are the trends you're seeing?
Well, right now, and content has always been king, but right now it's even more so. Used to, you could put out a little bit of content here and there and it would rank. But as more and more people like yourself, you said within the last year, you've gotten really into SEO. So as more people have done that over the years, it's become harder and harder to rank. So now content is more important than ever. So if you're not cranking out a decent amount of content, your SEO is probably not where it needs to be. Backlinks are still important. I think they'll always be important because that's one way that Google and other search engines know that your website is an authority, because if people are linking to you, I mean, we don't typically link to sites that we don't truly trust. So the more links you have coming to you, legitimate links, not just any old link, but the more links you have and the more content you have, I mean, those are the two big things right now.
Right. I know we pump out 4 2,000 word blog posts a day. So
Wow.
We're pumping out 8,000 words a day.
That's amazing.
Through our own blog post. And, it didn't take us long. It took I would say about 4 months or so, at that pace, 4 to 5 months, to where we completely took over the space.
I would imagine so, doing that much every day.
Because of all that content, right?
Right.
But it's not just about the content. It's about the keywords. It's about, all that stuff. And if you could just share one little nugget, right, about what you do, what would be a piece of advice you would give on SEO without not giving away your trade secrets and stuff, but what's one real gold nugget you could stick to the audience that they could go, I never thought of that?
Nothing like putting me on the spot there. Well, the thing that's really coming to mind is what you just said, sort of like keywords. I
Mhm.
mean, you can crank out thousands and thousands and thousands of words of content, but if you're not doing keyword research and creating a content plan, you're probably not going to be effective, because it's just cranking out content that is not going to be something people are looking for. So if they're not actually searching for that content, it's great to have on your website for the people that click over there and end up reading your blog maybe. But for SEO purposes, it's really not going to have the effect that you want. Recently, I've started using Ubersuggest, and Longtail Pro is a software that I really, really love. So between those two, I can usually get a good content plan.
Nice. So content plan, that's the little secret, right?
Right.
So instead of just trying to swag it, right?
Right. Exactly.
Scientific wild ass guesses usually don't work out very good.
No, never heard that one.
It's a swag. So yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure you're like up to speed on all this iOS stuff that's happened and where Google's going and all these different things. How do you see all of that stuff affecting SEO?
Well, I mean, it's more important than ever for you to have your SEO in place, because now that Facebook ads are not as effective, I mean, they're still effective, but because of all the changes with the privacy and all that, Facebook ads are not quite as easy to make what you need to make with. Like the sales, I know a lot of people that were killing it with Facebook ads are now not really struggling, but they're having to put out a lot more. They're having to invest a lot more than they were before because of the privacy stuff. So SEO is something that, they're searching for that. So you don't have to wonder, is their phone gonna keep them from that content? Because they actively searched for that. And if Google knows that you have the answer to that question and they actually send them to you, I mean, that's just awesome. It's like, why would you pay so much? And I'm not saying PPC and all that's not effective, but my main target is SEO. And for my clients, that's the main thing we do. If you need results fast, paid ads are great for that short term. And then you can even do some, ongoing, if you have somebody that knows what they're doing. Like, I don't claim to be an ad person, so I don't do ads for my clients. But if you hire somebody that knows what they're doing and you're not going to lose your shirt, then ads can be worth it. But SEO is just like, I mean, like you said, you're cranking out that content and it just builds the momentum in a way that ads doesn't, because those ads, once you turn them off, that's it.
Right. Well, and I think there's an important balance there, right? Between, all of these, we have all these different venues, right? We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all this stuff. And then you got paid, organic, all this different stuff. So it's really more about, you can't just focus on doing LinkedIn marketing. You can't just focus on doing Facebook marketing. You can't just focus on paid. You can't just focus on SEO. You have to kind of do a little bit of all of it. Really.
Right. You want to be everywhere.
Yeah. So, and I think I see a lot of companies today that they have really just tried to just do everything on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right? I've got a client of ours. He's ran an agency for years, and all of his eggs were in, right, servicing clients, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so on and so forth, those platforms. And then when all this crap happened, right, return on ad spend just went down in the toilet, right?
Yep.
So So had he instead had a multi-pronged approach to the way he helped these companies grow through paid advertising, and use some of these other forms like SEO, all that, mix that stuff in there, right? Then it would have been a plan that would have still took a hit, right? But not
Right.
went from hero to zero.
Right. Yeah, it's
Right?
never good to put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. And how do you advise? I know you said you're not like the ad expert, but like, how do you advise your clients, right, that you help with SEO? How do you advise them to put their plan together? Is it really dependent on each company, or is there kind of a specific process that, not cookie cutter, right? That's not what I'm saying, but do you think there's kind of some dominoes that are there?
Well, I've recently put together what I call the Ramp Up Your Revenue Roadmap, which takes a client from what I call A to Z. So like in the beginning, you're frustrated, you don't know what to do with your marketing, you don't know how to rank on Google. You're just at that point where you need your business to grow to the next level, but you don't know what to do. So we take them from 0 to here. So we start with, who is your ideal client? Like some businesses don't really even know who their ideal client is. I worked with a chiropractor one year and years ago, and I asked her, I said, who is your ideal client? And she said, anybody with a spine. And I was like, okay,
Anybody with a
so you work on a 2-month-old? No. Would you work on a 98-year-old? No. So, I mean, you obviously don't work on anybody with a spine. Right. You do have an ideal client. So we talk about ideal clients. We talk about the messaging. So like, what is your marketing message? What is your, like when I talk with clients, I work mostly with service providers, coaches, consultants. So I work with a lot of doctors and attorneys, and we talk about, what is your message that you want to get across on your website? Who are you trying to reach? What words do you need to say on your website that will resonate with that ideal client when they land there? What offers do you have? Then we look at the website. Do you need a funnel, a sales funnel? And then we look at SEO. That's kind of the top level. So I have like 3 phases. We have foundation, which is the client, the messaging, and the offers. And then we look at your assets, which is your lead gen asset, which hopefully you have a opt-in or something on your website so you can build your list. And then we look at the website and the funnels. And then SEO is the traffic piece of that. So you have to have all that in place for you to really have an effective website. I mean, you can get some leads with just part of that in place, but we can ramp it up and increase your revenue if you have all of that in place. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's my whole point. It's an identified process, right?
Right. Yes.
It's not well, let me just shove $5,000 over here, $5,000 here, let's see what happens.
Right.
Right. It's an actual process that
exactly.
And I think businesses struggle with that, right? Because especially when you get into the like young entrepreneurial businesses, or they're, in their 20s and they're used to social media, they're used to all this stuff. And they're like, well, I can figure that out. Right.
Right.
Well, really, you probably can't. Well, you can, right? But do you want to waste all those dollars behind it, right?
Exactly.
Trying to figure it out. And I know we see it all the time. And that's why it's important to work with people that have been doing this stuff for years. I mean, gosh, you've been doing this for 20 some years.
Right.
I mean, the amount of changes you must have saw in your field have to be just enormous over that
absolutely.
amount of time.
Definitely.
That's just crazy. But But anyway, we have the opportunity to help the younger generation of CEO not do all that, right?
Right.
So what's really a business struggle over your last 20 plus years, right? That you think you could share with a young CEO, and then how you overcame that?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably the biggest struggle is not being alone. Like, we have a tendency, I think, sometimes as to just think, I've got to figure this out myself. I've got to have all the answers. But we don't. We can network with other businesses. I mean, this podcast is an example of that, because you're helping those CEOs with the things that happen. Sometimes before they happen, they'll have listened to this podcast and maybe they'll get an answer so that they don't have to struggle. But I think that would probably be the biggest thing is, don't try to have all the answers yourself. Networking is extremely important. Find some of your peers or even maybe people in different industries, because they'll have a different perspective. So I would say, networking is probably the best way to overcome that struggle of, feeling like you're in this all alone and don't have any help.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always said this, being a CEO is very lonely, right? And especially if you are a solopreneur CEO, that's a lonely place to be. So
definitely,
you've got to surround yourself with people that know what they're doing and that can take care of you. And
when much of what we do is online,
yeah,
I mean, we're behind this computer screen all day and minimal contact with actual people.
Right. For sure. Well, kind of segueing into the next piece of this, and as we kind of close this conversation, I always like to ask this question: as if you could have picked somebody to be on this call today with us, dead or alive, family, whatever the case may be, mentor, who would that have been, do you think? And what question would you ask?
That is a hard question.
I know it is.
You like asking hard questions. Oh, wow. I am a Christian, and the only thing that's coming to mind is, and I would probably say Jesus. Anytime I had the opportunity to talk to Jesus, I would definitely, if I could talk to any person, that would probably be who it would be. And as far as what would I ask? Oh gosh. I'd probably ask, what can we do to change the things that are going on in this world? I mean, like right now, all the stuff going on in Russia and in the Ukraine. That's what comes to mind. World peace is kind of a big challenge to take on, but that's what came to mind.
Yeah. Well, there's no right or wrong answer to that question, but it's interesting because most people would say like Warren Buffett or, something like that. So it's like a far different perspective on that. And but we don't think about some of that stuff sometimes as business owners. It's like, what question could we ask, and like where could we get the most impact out of a question, and who would we ask it to? Right. And look back that far, if you could go back that far and glean some information from back then. Right. That'd be probably a pretty amazing tool, right?
Yes.
For sure. So anyway, thank you for that. And
you're welcome.
Well, hey, to close things out here, how do people get a hold of you? How can people contact you so they can work with you in the SEO field?
My website is premiumwebdesign.com. And there is a book a call link at the top of the website. So I would invite your audience, if anybody's interested, I'd be happy to hop on a strategy call and just give you value. It wouldn't be me trying to sell them something. It would be, let me take a look at your website and give you a free assessment of where you're at and where I think you could go if you employed marketing services, whether that's somebody else or myself.
Right. Great. Well, I will say this, 20 plus years working in this field, you wouldn't still be working in it if you didn't know what you're doing. So
thank you.
I would definitely encourage people to at least hop on the phone with you, learn your superpowers and the things that you've been doing for all these years, and get their own feel. Thank you for being here. And I got a little bit of enlightenment through this conversation myself.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. You have a spectacular rest of the week. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too. All right. Well, hey, thank you for tuning in today to this episode of War Room Moments. Remember, always dream it, believe it, and achieve it. This is your podcast host, Jason Miller, signing off.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.